Ladies and gentlemen, over the last few months, it has become very clear to me and to us on this YouTube channel that Bitcoin is very firmly consolidating between these two yellow lines you can see on the screen coming backwards from 2017 and 2021 on both occasions, coming from the all-time high in those prior two cycles. Cyclically relevant lines defining the floor and the ceiling for Bitcoin, and in doing so, defining the zone in which Bitcoin needs to break out to continue to move to the upside, and pretty much defining the level Bitcoin needs to hold in order to avoid moving to the downside, entering a bear market, and breaking the 4-year cycle. Now, the ceiling is quite straightforward. The floor seems like it is too, but they are a little bit more nuanced than that. In this video, I'll be looking at independent charts, third-party charts, getting an idea of where exactly the floor and the ceiling is, and then giving an assessment on how likely it is Bitcoin continues to the upside and when that might take place. Now, in tomorrow's video, I'll be doing a Q&A. That means I'll be answering your questions. Now, if you have a question about the market, altcoins, Bitcoin, traditional markets, macroeconomy, whatever it may be, go and leave me a question underneath my recent YouTube community page post. You can find it by going to my channel, going to posts, and leaving a question there. And I'll probably answer it in tomorrow's video. So anything you may have, shoot, and I'll answer it. Guys, thank you. A lot of people ask me what exchange I use as a trader. I use the Bitunix Exchange, and I don't have a contract with them. I haven't signed anything with them. I don't work for them. I advertise them on my own accord. With my referral link down below, you can get a 15% trading fee discount permanently attached to your account, as well as up to 8,000 USDT in rewards just by signing up with my link down below. Why would you sign up? Well, it's global, it's non-KYC, it's never been hacked before, it's got all of the functions and pairs that you would expect for a major exchange. For that reason, I use it. And I implore you to consider using it as well. Sign up with my link to help out the channel, help out yourself. Cheers. There's going to be 3 steps here. Step 1 is going to be identifying the upside level Bitcoin needs to break to continue the bull market. Step 2 is identifying the downside level Bitcoin needs to avoid breaking in order to avoid entering a bear market. And then I'm going to identify basically the probability of Bitcoin doing either based on my assessment. So let's keep it quick here. I know a lot of this is recapping. The upside level on Bitcoin is a little bit tricky to wrap your head around the nuances, but once you do, it's easy to identify. I mean, you could take a very simplistic approach and say, all right, it's just this pink line here going backwards from 2017. That's clearly marked a lot of the highs, 2021 highs, and the recent highs earlier this year and last year. Therefore, breaking that is the be-all, end-all. You could say that, right? 115,000 would be the case, but it's a little bit more complicated than that, and I think it's worth actually diving into the nuances so you don't end up just blindly buying at 115 and end up actually buying a bit too early and then getting crushed because it's a fake out, right? You don't want that to happen. So it's a bit more than just, oh, we need to break this level here in pink, right? 115K is the vague level, but it's based on other charts too. Charts like this logarithmic regression channel going backwards from 2011, which also sits at about 115,000. But more specifically, and something that is easier to identify and be precise from a pinpoint perspective, because the problem with a logarithmic chart like this is you can always just redraw it slightly to adjust your biases, right? But with this chart, you can't redraw it, right? This is a concrete chart. It is the USDT dominance chart, which represents the strength of USDT. Now, USDT dominance going downwards is obviously a good thing. We want this chart to drop because USDT dominance going downwards basically means that people are using their USDT coins to buy Bitcoin, and hence there is less USDT and there is more value in Bitcoin. We want this chart to drop, right? This chart dropping is good. And the fact that it has a strong macro support zone in red, this parallel macro support channel, is a bad thing. We're holding that support right now. And you can even just, if you're ignoring everything I just said, this very channel we have been holding right now for the last few months is the exact same channel that marked the Bitcoin tops in 2021, where I've just highlighted. So this channel has actually been a cycle killer historically. And that just adds to how important it is that it breaks to the downside. Now, when would this channel break to the downside? Well, we can assume it probably breaks to the downside when Bitcoin breaks its macro range at 115, but we can't be absolutely sure of that. We'd have to see what happens at the time. Now, it could break before 115, it could break slightly after, but realistically, full confirmation in my view, given the fact that this channel has killed the prior cycle, I shouldn't say killed, it's a bit of an aggressive word, it led to the top of the price cycle. In my view, this chart is going to be extremely relevant as we approach that 115K level. And I'd actually be reacting more to this chart than I would this line on Bitcoin. But if we're speaking vaguely, yes, $115,000 is the upside level that Bitcoin needs to break in order to continue into another macro leg to the upside. What about the downside level? Now, it's very important to note, the only way we can validate a Bitcoin top pre-cycle deadline is by waiting for a breakdown validation of that top, right? Structurally. We can't sit here and say that this is the top because there's no macro trend that points to that being the top. We can, however, say this is the top if we break down low enough to confirm that that was the top and we see a structural breakdown. So what I'm saying is, in order for the top to be marked, we have to do one of two things. We have to either be in the 4-year cycle deadline, which is around late October, or we have to drop low enough to convince everyone that that actually was the top and the 4-year cycle is broken. So where is that low enough point? Where would Bitcoin have to go to for me to be convinced that the top is in? Now, there's a couple of elements to this. I would be relatively convinced that the top was in if Bitcoin broke below 94,000, because that would be a break below the current macro range. And at this point in the cycle, I think we shouldn't be doing that. I think we only have 3.5 months left, roughly, more or less, and we shouldn't be making a new macro breakdown with this limited amount of time left. That macro breakdown would also very concretely confirm a double top formation and a second deviation from the current macro range. I think that we wouldn't sustain. I think it'd be very unlikely for Bitcoin to rise after that, right? But I can't really be certain based on indicators that the top would be in if we dropped only below 94,000. For me personally, I'd have to wait for, and when I say I'd have to wait, I'm not saying I'd be holding my coins to this point. I'm just saying that in terms of validating an actual, theory, 100% fully okay, the top's in, there's no chance of recovery whatsoever from a TA perspective, would only come, in my view, from a breakdown of the Gaussian channel weekly chart centerline, all right? The weekly chart centerline of the Gaussian channel is the most accurate macro indicator there is. The only issue with it is it gives late signals. So when we move through the center line of the weekly chart Gaussian channel, we move through the entire Gaussian channel with a macro leg, right? Move through it, move through it. You move through it from the upside and you move through it way to the downside. Happens over and over again. It's got a 100% accuracy over 7 separate occasions. And for that reason, the only way I'd be 100% convinced that the top is in is if Bitcoin breaks down from the center line of the weekly chart Gaussian channel, which is currently sitting around 78,000. If we were to go down to it, it'd be probably, 80, maybe low 80,000s. That would be a 100% confirmation of a top. But again, you're paying the 100% accuracy of this indicator. You're paying for it because you have to wait quite a while for it to be triggered, and you could miss quite a big bulk of the move by the point it is triggered. But that doesn't negate the use of it. 100% accurate indicator so far, historically speaking, on 7 occasions over the course of a decade, is this weekly chart Gaussian channel. And the weekly chart Gaussian channel says the floor for Bitcoin, the absolute lowest it can go currently to this day, is about 78,000. By the time we get there, probably 80,000. But in order to be moderately accurate and moderately confident that the top is in, I would say even something like $94,000 breaking would be enough. Maybe we could stretch that to the horizontal level, in which case it'd be something like 88, 89,000. So upside level we need to break, roughly 115. Downside level we need to hold if we're being pessimistic, probably around 89,000. If we're being optimistic, probably around 80,000. That gives you a relatively good framework through which to make decisions on Bitcoin and the altcoin market as well, I assume. Now, in terms of the likelihood of Bitcoin breaking to the upside, I am, of course, if you watched the YouTube channel before, firmly of the opinion that Bitcoin probably will. I'm looking for an upside breakout. I'm macro bullish on Bitcoin. I've remained that way literally since the very bottom of the Bitcoin bear market in November 2022. In fact, I flipped bullish. If you go back on my YouTube channel, I flipped bullish on the break of about 17,000 with buys on 17,000 as well publicly. 17,000, 19,000, 21,000, right? This has not changed for me. Nothing's changed for me at this point. That's because I based my predictions, I based my long-term observations so far on the 4-year cycle, which has never been incorrect before. And until I see evidence of it being incorrect, of course, I'm not going to change these biases. But if we're looking at something more local, something more short-term, I just think that Bitcoin is in a good position. What has Bitcoin done here? It broke into a macro range. It faked out below it. We got back into the macro range, representing strength. While doing this, it also had a very important weekly chart RSI level, a 62 on the weekly chart RSI, the origin of weekly chart RSI price action, which we've rejected from and bounced from so many times historically speaking, which has led to macro moves in the past 18 months to a 100% accuracy rate. Every time we've broken above this weekly chart RSI level and below this weekly chart RSI level, it has led to a new macro move to the upside or a downside on Bitcoin. You can go ahead and highlight that yourself if you want to. Here's a break here, led to an upside move. Here's a break here, led to a downside move. Break here, upside move. Break here, downside move. This previously very important indicator was broken to the downside, and it fake out right back to the upside with a bullish engulfing candle. We're currently flipping that for support. That's an excellent sign. We look at the total cryptocurrency market caps. We see channels to the upside with months left in the cycle. We can see one more bounce here, especially considering I guess I should say the importance rather of this support zone. Same thing for total 3. Support zone going backwards from the 2021 all-time high, flipped for support right here with bullish engulfing candle within a bullish channel formation. There are charts across the market right now which are showing Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, altcoins leaning towards macro strength, right? This is all happening within the broader macro bullish 4-year cycle. To me, it really is a matter of time, not if, right? It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And of course, in this video, I've highlighted where the floor is. All we need to do, for my opinion, to change on that is see evidence. If we see a breakdown of something like 90,000, something like 94,000, and definitely something like 78,000, cool, I'll change my opinion. Until then, the evidence seems very clear to me. In terms of short-term analysis, like what will we do this week, that's a bit more difficult. I don't have the answers there. Usually I do, but at this point, this consolidation on the local level has lasted about 2 months. And I think it's ignorant to think that any sort of new triangle we're seeing right now or new pattern we're seeing right now will end it. I think we just have to wait in that regard. Bitcoin has shown in this cycle time and time again that short-term analysis is kind of not really relevant because you can see short-term structures that form, and we have seen short-term structures that form. They break, they lead to nothing, and the extensive consolidation continues. When you're seeing regularly 230-day consolidation periods, short-term really does fall to the wayside. So guys, with that said, what have we highlighted in this video? We've highlighted the fact that the macro breakout point is probably around 115, but that requires confirmation from the USDT dominance chart. We've highlighted the fact that the macro breakdown point is probably around 89,000, but certainly at about 78,000. And we've highlighted that Bitcoin is still looking macro bullish. Guys, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. As I said, go ahead and leave a question in my YouTube community page. I've asked you a poll right there, not a poll, but I've asked you guys to leave me a question. I'm going to do a Q&A video in the next video. I'm going to answer your questions that you've asked there in video format. So go ahead and do that. If you have something about the market, whether it be altcoins, Bitcoin, macro economy that you want to ask me, go ahead and do that. You've got a few hours there to do so. And then a lot of people ask me what exchange I use as a trader. I use the Bitunix Exchange, and I don't have a contract with them. I haven't signed anything with them. I don't work for them. I advertise them on my own accord. With my referral link down below, you can get a 15% trading fee discount permanently attached to your account, as well as up to 8,000 USDT in rewards just by signing up with my link down below. Why would you sign up? Well, it's global. It's non-KYC. It's never been hacked before. It's got all of the functions and pairs that you would expect for a major exchange. For that reason, I use it. And I implore you to consider using it as well. Sign up with my link to help out the channel, help out yourself. Cheers.